Okay, so today in this session, we would be talking about how we can design a UI with the help of Python. Now, you would have talked about a UI development with the help of JavaScript using some advanced framework like React.js, AngularJS, or some sort of application programming interface using VB.NET or Canvas.NET, right? Now, Python also allows you to do a UI development, and it's very easy and it's very fun. Actually, you would be enjoying doing the Python stuff. Why? Because it is very simple and easily understood application development using Python. So this entire development would happen with the framework called Tkinter, Tkinter. If you can see on the screen, on the top left corner, the module name has been mentioned over here, which is called as Tkinter. Now this module is by default developed and integrated in the Python itself. So that's an advantage. You don't have to install a new module. You don't have to configure a new module. It's coming by default with the Python installation itself. Okay, so yeah, so I hope my voice is loud and clear. Please let me know in the chat if you're not able to hear me clearly. Okay, perfect. So even I have done a quick reset of my voice. So in case if you're not able to hear me clearly, I would request you to please rejoin the session. Right, perfect. Thanks, Yogesh. So yes, so this module is very easily available with the Python itself. We can develop a very advanced UI with this application. There are a lot of real-time application which is built on top of this module. Now, this module is designed with the perspective to build a console kind of application. Now, for this, you should know Python. Foundation of Python is enough for you to build application, integrate application with the real-time use cases. So let me know in the chat, how many of you are aware of Python? Okay, so I can see that most of the people are aware of the Python. Now, if I want to put in a simple way, anyone who has basic of Python would be able to develop this UI with the help of this module, because this module is designed in such a way that all the methods, all the functions, all the functionalities and features are very easily understood and very easily configurable. You just have to configure this accordingly to use in the application. Now, there is one popular module development application which is built on top of this module, and you can very easily go ahead and Google, you can have a search that the first web browser was built using Python was with the help of this module. Even lots of data science projects, lot of data science UI applications are built using this module. Why? Because it has been actually easy to implement. It's very easy to straightforward to configure and systematically, right? If you know foundation, you would be able to develop a very huge amount of application itself. Starting from very simple to very complex applications, all can be developed quite easily. So I would rather say that any person who's aware of basic of Python would be able to actually understand, learn, and build applications over here. All you need is Python, and then you need some basics of graphic designing, of putting a proper
I
text
sir, we
box.
can't see your PPT, sir.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, but
Yes, screen I
screen
have
is
not
not.
yet shared. Yes,
Yes.
screen has not yet shared. I would be sharing the screen. Right. So let's quickly go ahead and do some development, do some testing on top of this application. So, right. So for this, I need to have Python. I already have installed Python in my system, which is basically a very latest edition of Python I have installed. So I'll just quickly show my screen. Yeah. So this is the application which I've been using in Python. So already I have installed a Python version. So I just go ahead and when I type Python. So I'm using the very latest edition, which is 3.10.4 for the development. You can use any version which is either older or which is basically more advanced. All works fine because all the versions of Python would have this module by default. Now, just to have a quick test, if you are able to actually call up this module or not, you can just open the Python console. You can just type Python space -m and just type this module. This will open up a quick UI, and this UI basically is a testing UI, which gives you an idea that your Python is compatible with this module and it is very well integrated with the Python. So please type Python space -m space Tkinter in your console just to check if this module is working perfectly in your system. And let me know in the chat if it works fine. Perfect. Now there are a lot of modules. There are a lot of competitor modules for this Tkinter. So Tkinter is a free open source module which comes with a BSD license. That means we can develop our own application. We can deploy those applications to the production environment free of cost. Even we can share this application with other companies once our applications are production ready. But if I talk about what are some advanced modules which is available on top of it as a part of this competitor, right? So I can go ahead and I can show you one such module that works basically with this Python is Qt. Now Qt is a cross-platform UI development application framework which is built on top of Python, and this is the application being used by almost every company now to build the desktop applications. You can go in Google, you can just search Qt. Qt is a free framework on Python. It comes with two versions. One is basically the trial edition, another one is the enterprise edition. So you can use the trial edition, you can build some sample applications. But if you want to share those applications with the customer, you have to buy the license. So Qt is a very popular module. It is used by almost every industry who builds UI based on the Python. Nowadays, it is being used by gaming development. And if you have heard about data analytics or building the visualization platform, Qt is used over there. Apart from Qt, you have one more, which is called as Kiwi. You can go to Google and just type Kiwi Python. Kiwi is basically a competitor to the same Qt, but Kiwi is built for the gaming purpose. If you want to build an application that has a gamification, we use Kiwi for that. So Kiwi is also a very popular application. Lot of game has been developed on top of Kiwi. You can use Kiwi in your environment as well. So Kiwi and Qt are two stable and very popular in terms of UI development for specific purpose, right? Apart from that, we also have few more which are open source, like the one which you can talk about is, so Tkinter is basically a is an opposite to Tkinter, which is basically using Java to build a UI. That module is also a free module from Python itself. You can actually use this module to build the Java applications based on the Python modules. You can just go ahead and search for JPython. So it would come actually in the Java Python version. Yeah. Right. So these are the few modules that comes very efficiently, that comes with the UI parts of UI development for the Python. Now, for our demonstration purpose, we would be using one application which is called as Tkinter, and that is something we have seen very well over here. Right. So any questions, anyone? Yes, Aditi. If you are using the older version of Python, it works very fine. Yes, Ruchi, it works with Colab as well. So Mukesh, this JPython, basically the Tkinter comes with a free license. It's a BSD license, which you can actually use in your Python for open source development. But Qt is a trial license you have to buy basically to use and do the production development. So Srikant, Tkinter is an open source license. So Arpita, you have to install Python in your system for using it. Yes, Akbar, it also works in Mac. It works in three environment, Mac, Python, and Windows. All the three have the same framework. So all the three can be using the same version of the code and works everywhere. Right now, just click on quit and then the model testing is done. Now for the development, I would be using Visual Studio Code. So you can use any editor of your choice. You can use PyPython, PyCharm, or you can use Atom, or you can use simple Notepad or Notepad++ according to your taste. I'm very much comfortable with Visual Studio Code because it allows me to do a lot of other stuff like testing, debugging, and deploying of the code very efficiently. So just open the Visual Studio Code. If you don't have access, you can go to the Microsoft Windows and you can install from there. You can directly go to the Google and just type Visual Studio Code, and then you can use this link to download the free Visual Studio Code for your development. Now, once again, apart from this, we also have something called as Atom, and we also have PyCharm. All those things works very well, very fine, but depends accordingly. Okay, so once you have installed Visual Studio Code, you can create a folder structure and you can install the Python library. So I already have this configured. So very quickly, what I'll do is that I'm going to write a code over here just to check if my Python is working fine. Right, so I'll just type print a simple code over here to check if my Python works fine. Welcome Python, click on play, and you can see on the console, the code got executed. So now let me know in the chat, which one is your editor for your development. You can use the chat or you can use the mic. I think mic would be disabled. You can use the chat directly to let me know which ID. Perfect. So yes, Anaconda also we can use. It works very well. So it depends entirely on your choice, which one you want to use. Yes, you can use Anaconda, you can use Jupyter, you can use Vim, PyCharm, all works fine. Spider also works fine. I would say that make a choice between Anaconda, PyCharm, or VS Code. All these things are possible. Even yes, Ekta, you can use Linux console as well. But if you want to have a very good development environment and support, go ahead and use Visual Studio Code. So Gotham Tkinter would come automatically because it's a default package from Python itself. You don't have to install it separately. Yes, Sudeshna, in Anaconda, I think you may need to configure it. Okay, Suraj. So coming to your answer, let's go ahead and do some exercise, do some quick demo. So on my screen, I hope my screen is visible to everyone. So on my screen, I'll do a very quick demo to basically create a sample UI. So first of all, you need to import the module. You can just go to console and type from Tkinter import star. So when you type star, it basically installs and import all the libraries from the Tkinter. Now the next thing is importing the modules and creating the main window. And then for that, you can just type top. Top is basically a variable. You can give any name. You can just give the name as root window. Any name of your query, of your interest, you can just give. And then we create a instance of the Tkinter class. Now we're going to enter inside the window and we're going to execute the window for some period of time. So for that, I'm going to create a loop. So this loop event will execute the window. So for this, I'm going to type root window dot main loop. That's it. Now a simple UI is ready. Now this simple UI is basically right. So this simple UI would execute. So just click on play, and now you can see that a simple window has come on the screen. Just with the 2 line of code, we have defined a UI wherein basically we can actually develop our UI interface. Right. So now we can add all the commands, all the widgets like button, text box, drop down, all sorts of widgets we can add. So a quick revision. First of all, we have imported the module. So that is we are given from Tkinter import star. This will going to import all the modules of this particular application. Then after that, we created a window, a layout window in which we would be doing our UI development. And then to show that window on the screen, we have used a loop command so that this keeps on displaying on the screen until we close the window. Right? Quite easy. Now, there are a lot of different widgets that we can add on the screen. So, for example, a button, a canvas, a checkbox, a frame, a label, a list box. So we'll do some demonstration, right? So we'll first basically add a simple layout and then we'll try to add few buttons on top of it, right? So can we go next? Perfect. So now let's suppose I want to add a quick label on the element. So I will just go ahead. So after adding the root window, I would be displaying that. So just this is a place I would be adding a label to the code. So I hope you can see my screen very clearly. So for adding the label, right, you can just have one layout. I can just say that layout one. You can give any name. Basically, we are trying to add a label, right? So that's the reason. Now this label have few parameters. First of all, we need to pass the window in which we want to add a label. And then after that, the text you want to display on the label. Hello world. So simple layout has been added and then layout one dot pack. So now we're going to pack this to the root window. That's it. So our layout is ready. So now when we execute this code, our code will basically show a layout, and in that layout I would be adding a label. So let's go ahead, execute. Okay, so we got one error over here. It says that you in TK. Save the code, execute. Okay, so now you can see that we got one small window, and in that window we have a label over here. In that label, I have given the message as hello world. Right? Simple, quick, easy. Any questions? Okay, so now let's talk few more things about the root window. So we'll go step by step. Well, you don't need to worry about what is pack or what is the layout, what exactly all these things, right? So we would be actually doing all of this step by step. So now once we have added a root window, so let's suppose I wanted to add a title to the application. So I'll just type root window dot title, and in that I would be passing the title. Sample application. Now if I run the code, you see that this application has a title in it as sample application. So one of the best thing about this module is you have activities for each and every operations. All you have to do is you have to configure the application instance. So right now we have added a title. So that title we have added over here. Now, similarly, you can add the resizing option. You can actually resize the window, maximize the window, minimize the window. All sorts of operations can be done very easily. Right now, what is pack over here? See, the root window will allow you to create a layout. Right? If you see this application, that this is just a window. Now inside this window, if I want to add the UI elements, right? If I want to add the button, the text box, I need a layout. Now there are three different types of layout. One is the pack that we're using. It's a default layout. Then you have something called grid. You can have a grid-like structure, and then you can have something called as place. So there are three layouts on top of which you can put the elements. But right now we have used the default layout, which is called as pack. So pack would be adding the layout, pack would be adding the element in the line by line structure. It's a basic structure. So if you see, right, one element we have added. Let's suppose if I add 2-3 layouts over here. So 2-3 elements basically, level 1, level 2, level 3. And now when I execute this code, you can see that it has packed 3 elements line by line. So pack is a default layout on top of which you can add the element. Next, you have grid, where you can place in the column and rows like structure. And then after that, you have place, where you can define a canvas. So these are three methods that we can use. Yes, so we can insert an image, we can put a URL, we can put a web component over here. It's very much flexible, it's very much customizable. You can change the color as well, right? So these operations are very straightforward, and whenever it's required, you can configure accordingly. Any questions? Yes. Yes. So this is basically one single layout. Now over here, right, this is the one layout on which we are adding. If you add multiple layouts, you can have multiple windows as well. Now let's suppose I wanted to change the color of the label. I wanted to add basically few options, like I want to change the font color as well. I can do that very straightforward. So we have a different method and functions available. So one is you have foreground. Now this foreground and the color name which you want to give. Let's suppose I wanted to give the color as white, and I wanted to change the background color over here as black. Now what happens? We are given a color configuration to the label. So if I go and execute, you see that the label color has become black and the font color has become the white. Straightforward. We can also change the font size. You can increase, decrease the font. You can change the height, width as well. So now very straightforward, right? So if I want to change the height and width, again, I can go back. I can just type width is equal to 10. It's 10 pixel and height is equal to 10 pixel. If I execute a code now, you can see that the hello world code has 10 pixel of height, 10 pixel of width. And then the label looks in a similar way. Right. So if you want to increase, you can increase. Let's suppose the width you want to give to 30 and height is somewhat same. Just execute the code. So you see that hello world in a simple black window where you have a label in which you have the font color as white. Yes, you can type everything in a single line. This is for the explanation. I'm putting in a multiple line. Right. In a similar way, now you can also have a message box which is added. So I can just stop this now and I can say that, okay, I don't want this layout. I can just comment it out. So you can always minimize this window. And in a similar way, you can add a button over here. Now a button can also be added in there are a lot of ways to basically add a button, but one such way, we're going to go the default ways. So button is equal to, right? So we can just say that button and then the methods. So what is the text you wanted to add in the button? So let's suppose click here is the name of the button. And then if you want to increase or decrease the button size, you can give width is equal to 25. And then you can give height is equal to 5. So these are nothing but your pixel combination. So there is a number. So that's the reason it becomes number. So height, and then you have background color You can type complete background, or you can just type short form as BG. So let's suppose background is blue, and you can give foreground. Okay, and then I'm going to pack this button on the layout. So button dot pack. So basically we added this button on the layout. So that's the reason it has been packed over here. And also you need to specify which window you want to pack it. Save, run the code. So now you can see you have a button. When you click on button, nothing happens, right? But you have a simple button that actually displays some text. Right? Any questions? Okay, so yes, this is the code, how it got executed. As you can see on the screen, a simple UI with a click button. Yes, Mukesh, you can do that as well. So Mohit, it's a default behavior of the button. You can disable that if requires. Yes, Suraj, you can also make an exe for that, and you can distribute over the application servers. Right? Perfect. So Khan, I'm using the latest version of Python. You can use any version of Python if required. So now let's create one simple application. Let's try to create a digital clock. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to add a new code over here. I'll give the name as digital clock dot py. Now this is a quick application. So we will build this application using Python. So we would be using the Python module, so Tkinter module. So let me add a quick label, creating a quick digital clock using Python. Okay, so the first step is basically import the modules. Now for importing the modules, you can type in this way from Tkinter import star. This will import all the modules from the library. And since we are creating the clock, we would be importing one more library, which is called as time. Now after that, we're going to create the root window. Right, so for creating the root window, we have to configure and create an initialization over here. Okay, so first is you can give any name basically. I always prefer having a proper naming convention. So root window is equal to tk. So now we are initializing a root class of Tkinter to build the layout. Now after that, I'm going to give a quick title to the window. So I'll set root window dot title and I'll specify the title, digital clock system. So this is the root title. So if I want to specify, I can just say that adding title. Now, once the root title has been added, what I'll do is I'm going to quickly give a height and width to the window. So I'm just going to give read window dot geometry, and here I'm going to specify the height and width. Let's suppose I want to give the height as 400 into 200 or 100 accordingly. Okay, so what we have done is we have created a window and then we have specified the height and width to the window, and now we would actually execute the code. So it's geometry. Now once the window has been created, quickly display the window. So I'm going to use display command over here. And here now I'm going to go back to the main code and just show you the loop command. So this loop command would actually display the window. If I execute the code now, you can see okay, so it is 400 into, right? Save the code, execute the code. So you have that window in the screen. And if I want to add the background to the window, I'll just go ahead and just type root window dot, and then I'm going to type it over here as config, because we're going to configure the window. Now in that background, I want to add background is equal to black. So close the application and run the code. So now you have a window with the title as digital clock system, and then you have the background as black. You can make it any color, orange, yellow, whatever depends on the requirement. So right now over here, I'm just add black, and I'm going to add a label of the white color. Right? Quite easy. Any questions? Okay, so I guess session is being recorded. The only reason is like I am not sure if that would be shared across to the team. So you need to check with the facilitator for that. So maybe try giving the name in the small letter. It would work. So if this doesn't works, let's check this one. Okay, not a worry on that. Maybe I'll just check. I think some syntax would have changed for that. Okay, so now the next thing is that adding the timer, basically adding the clock to it, because we have added the window and we have also added the background color. So now let's quickly add a loop to it. So I'll just go ahead and give a name as adding the clock. So first we'll add a quick label. So LOCK, and then so give a name. Clock is equal to, now we can add a label to it. Just now we added a label configuration, right? So the same thing works over here. So first specify the window in which you want to write. Root window. Second thing is that after that, specify the color. So for me, the background should be black. And then the font color I'm going to give as white. Why? Because it's a digital clock. You can give any color. So now we have a quick label. Now in this label, I would be updating the text. So for now, what I can do give is just for quick check, I'll add a text. I'm going to give the name as demo clock. But we'll see later on how do we basically add a clock to it. And then I'm going to fix the clock to the window. So for fixing it, I'm going to use a method called pack. Right? So let's run the code. Give a comma. So now you see that we have a quick label. In that label, we added the clock as the demo clock. I would give a quick height as 50 and width as 50. Okay, so height works fine. So let's give height as 20. Let's make height 10 and width, let's make it as 70. Okay, so now it looks like a proper clock, a proper timer. So now we have the clock. Now the next thing is that we need to add the time over here. So for that, there are a lot of ways you can do it. I'll follow a very simple approach of updating it via function. So I'm going to create a clock updater function. Now this clock updater would keep on updating the clock time so that we can actually see it happening on the UI. Right? So any questions so far? Any doubts so far? Yes, Ramya, according to my system configuration, that 400 by 100 is not working, but actually it works. There are multiple combinations you can give a try. 400 by 100 will work fine. 400 by 100 into some pixel combination, that also works fine. Yes. So any questions so far? Okay, so right now the clock has not been attached. So we'll go ahead now and we'll attach the clock to the timer application. Okay, so for that, I'm going to create a function called start clock. So I can give any name. I would be giving a simple name so that it becomes easier for us to recognize. So it's digital start clock. So this we're going to start the clock. Now here I'm going to attach the text. So clock.config. So config is a parameter by which we can configure any widgets like the root window or any elements like label, button, Dropbox. So a lot of things, a lot of ways we can add it, right? So clock.config, I'm going to add the text now. So the text would be my time. So time dot, right? So you can change the format of the time and you can give in a proper way, the way you want to configure the time. So it becomes now hour, minute and second. So hour for M, minutes for hour for I, minutes for M, and I'm going to give second. Okay. So now we have added the clock. Once we have added the clock, now what I'll do is I would be updating the clock after every 1 second. So clock dot after every 1 second, update the label. And then the method over here as start clock. So basically what we did over here, we have created a method called start clock. This clock, whenever this clock starts, it automatically update the time with the current time, which is my system time, and I'll format that time into hour, minute and second. And after every 1 second, I would be recalling the same method so that our time get updated automatically. So we don't have to write a separate logic for that. It keeps on getting the updates automatically. Right? And once everything is done, I would be adding the clock method. And then after that, I would be actually calling the start clock. Right? So now my label is ready. My clock is ready. If I just go ahead and execute the code, you can see that 3:49, 36, 37, 38, it's keep on getting updated. It's a digital clock, right? It's getting updated automatically. Now the font is too less for me, right? So I'll just go ahead. I'll first change the layout, the format, and after that, now I would be adding the font. So I can just type font is a method directly, right? So I can just give over here Arial, and then after that font size, and then behavior, BOLD. So now the font becomes 40, and after that it gets somehow integrated over here, and I would be adding into the label. Right, so let's execute and check. So now you see that the font has increased and this has also increased the height. So let's go back and reduce the height as well. So height is okay. So I'll be giving 5 pixels over here and I would be giving 50 over here. Click on play. Let's reduce the size to 30. So now you see that our digital clock timer is ready and our label is getting updated every 1 second with this particular method. Like that, you can build lots of complex application like a notepad calculator, a data science application, or image recognition applications and OCR applications. You can build a lot of UI related applications very easily just with the help of drag and drop, or you can say that a simple method and configurable commands in Python. Now you have this module. This module executes and keep displaying your time. Any questions? Yes, Parinila, we can use loop also. So Venkatesh, to add a drag and drop, you have to use a designer. You can use Educoba designer for your development. Yes, Lokesh, you can add an action. Whatever action is required, you can define that action as well. You can build a very powerful scheduler. You can execute a process. If you are executing an SQL query, you can create a scheduler based on it. So there are a lot of variations you can define, you can build on top of these applications. Yes, Mohit, you can create an exe. You have to use an application called PyInstaller. That PyInstaller would actually create an exe. So if you're not aware of PyInstaller, go to Google, just type PyInstaller. So PyInstaller is an application from Python itself that converts a Python file to exe. Now with this PyInstaller, you would be able to create an exe file, execute in the form of an exe way. And you can use for distribution as well. Perfect. Any questions? So Ali, there would be a recording that would be shared across after the meeting. Okay, so actually what is happening over here, if you see the line number 18, 19, and 20. So I have created a method called start clock. Now this start clock will do two things. First, it will update the label with the text. And after that, it will click on, so it will keep on updating the label by using an after function. So clock.after, and then I have specified second. 1000 millisecond is equal to 1 second, right? So I given 1000 millisecond, and then I've given the method. So by this, I would be keep on refreshing and updating the label with the new clock value. And in the bottom, if you see, right, after adding the clock component, I have called the method start clock. By this way, it is keep on running and displaying you the latest value. Now the entire code I'll copy and I'll paste in the chat, then access from there as well. So I pasted the code in the meeting chat, you can access from there. Perfect. So it was nice talking to everyone. Thank you so much for your time and patience. Thank you, Srikant. So thanks everyone. Thank you.